question two, but I'm going to break it up. All right. So, can you shed light on the key barriers or systemic issues that contribute to the housing crisis in New
I'll start. A couple of things over the past couple of years, the barriers like that. Before, like in 2019, when there was a major overhaul as far as like tenant legislation, where it got rid of things such as vacancy decontrol, where in rent stabilized apartments, for rent stabilized apartments reached the price of, let's say, $2,700, it became market rate, and a lot of landlords use various tactics to get it up there. Whether it's like repairs to try to fix someone out, say that you need to leave because we want to rent that apartment. So rather, those type of tactics. And under Bloomberg, the city lost. I can't remember the exact number. It was anywhere from 35,000 to anywhere between 35,000, 40 to 450,000 rent stabilized apartments. During under Bloomberg, we lost, right? And so the thing is that that was one barrier. You're losing it while at the same time the city is actually building like luxury apartments. So when people say the housing crisis, it's not. It paints a picture that housing is not being built, which is not the case. The question is what income can afford, what income is being targeted. And a lot of it is, there has not been a shortage of, apartments, luxury apartments being built. You see it all over the place, right? Another barrier, surprisingly enough, and this is like for homeowners, right, is that like for years, we had like low interest rates. And on the face of it, seems like low interest rate seems, it's great. Low interest rate, I have low interest rate on my Visa card, it's great, right? But what low interest rates did was actually, particularly for a place like New York City, where it's very desirable. You're talking about a coastal city. You have like various types of employment. And it made like New York City hyper desirable. Right? Not just for the regular person, but also for speculation, right? So if you look at like some like a lot of developments that you see, like persons, particularly like large buildings, it would normally be like a family like type of business where like manage like large apartments. Maybe let's say Crown Heights and other places. We're talking about privately owned, not necessarily like Nitro, which is privately owned apartments. And what happens is that during that period, you have like a lot of like investment firms buying up these buildings, and it become a part of these like larger portfolios like that was going on like during the 2000 period, right? So you had that going on, right? So the thing is that the low interest rates became easy for, let's say, LLCs and other lenders to get money, so they can then buy apartments, like buy particularly homes, particularly with target individuals, let's say, or behind in their mortgage, and so forth, and say, what, house on the market will probably at that time probably cost, let's say, $600,000 house. What, I'll give it to you in a mortgage problem. I'll give it to you for, let's say, 150. A lot of people not knowing better or in a crisis state will take that. You understand? They'll take that same apartment, flip it, like put like 10 or 15,000 repairs, either flip it for way more than what they paid for, or they'll probably make it to apartments. So that low interest rate just fueled like a huge amount of speculation, and it also increased the price, made it out of range for, let's say, the average person to purchase. So that's one of the barriers.
And I think building from that, because everything now, from healthcare to the cost of education to everyone is just trying to survive. Like, even if you have a 6-figure job, that's like the new $50,000 job. So when there are opportunities for homeowners with things like I'm thinking of like the state ADU program, accessory dwelling unit program, right? There's this opportunity to apply for funding from the state to maybe build another unit on your property, whether that be in your backyard or like on top of your garage or something. The idea is that, okay, you might not be able to afford your mortgage comfortably right now, but if you can have this subsidy to help build another unit on your property, you can then rent that unit out and you can use that rent to pay for your mortgage. Now, you're not like house rich, couch poor anymore. You have this cash flow coming in from your asset. And so it's a great model, but you have to be like 10 years before that application comes out preparing to apply for that application, right? There's like such a finite resource. And so as people are just trying to survive and, doing everything we can, we might not have the time to put a, 5-page detailed application together for this resource. So I think that's a big barrier, is just like having the time to even go after the resources that are out there, which, all of us, hopefully at our orgs, we could try to lessen these barriers by creating more streamlined processes, or working with the city and the state to streamline it more. And I think from like a rental standpoint, like you're saying, the lack of rent regulation or like the loss of all of those rent regulated units is obviously a huge barrier to getting housing. And now the units that are coming on board that are subsidized by the city that are deemed affordable. I have to say, the city, I think, probably credit to a lot of people in this room, has now reacted to communities yelling out, this is not affordable, right? So like HPD, their feet were held to the fire. And now when there is subsidized buildings going up, more of the units are deeply affordable. HPD is accepting that kind of within the business model, but it takes like a lot of work from the community to make sure that happens. So that's just a theme for a barrier that sticks in my mind, is that, community members, on top of everything else that we have to do, have to be out there advocating constantly to get the resources and to get the city to, ensure development plans are truly affordable for people in the community.
Yeah, definitely. Piggybacking on that, I would say one of the main barriers that I see is kind of like false knowledge out there, and also lack of accountability. So, like Tyrone was just mentioning about LLCs.
Yes.
Yeah,
They did,
yeah.
So, well, that passed, but
Yeah, we'll see.
It's always been, I think, landlords or corporate landlords, et cetera's response to any type of push forward that tenants make. So we had a new rollout of the rent laws in June of 2019, but a lot of tenant organizers saw it, but most renters didn't, that landlords adapt just like tenants adapt. So like Tyrone is saying, if you put up things to stop specific bonuses, I'm a landlord and I still want that profit, I still want to make money, I'm going to find a way. So on our end as tenant organizers, we have to see stabilized tenants coming forward with false nuisance claims and stuff that they can use to try and break a lease. So making sure that renters know their rights is super duper important. Knowing the type of apartment you live in is the type of apartment you're renting is super important. Some others did not have certain protections and some don't. But yeah, I would say like the thing about LLCs, hiding from accountability, a lot of times tenants will come to us and say, hey, there was turnover in my building was sold out owner. They're claiming I don't have a security deposit on file. They claim they don't know who I am, that my kid was never living here. In reality, we usually find out in 2 or 3 seconds that same agent, same landlord, different name.
Yeah.
And when you see something like that,
Wow.
you as an organizer, you tell yourself, I'm still going after the same person, but am I going after this entity or am I going after this LLC? And it has to look a little different. So I would say one of the barriers is like accountability, and then it's background research too. And also we're the HPD ambassador for that lottery that a lot of people have problems with. And believe you me, I have a problem with it too. I've been waiting this like all of you. But it's super important to utilize HPD ambassadors to find out what the lottery really is. If somebody wants to come to me and say, hey, I got a court date on Monday, and they need immediate housing, I'm not going to send you to the lottery. There's other platforms out there. There's basic platforms out there if you're just looking for a regular apartment out there. But being transparent with tenants, letting them know, like, hey, the lottery is something that does incentivize working. If you look at an ad, you're going to see they want that family that's beginning to make $100,000. That sounds crazy because there might be only one person in that family working. This is a lottery that incentivizes work. You might need more than one income in your household to get in this lottery and qualify. So you don't want to, and then it's really hard, especially if you're a individual, a single person with like one bedroom, because like you mentioned, those AMI, those area median incomes are out of control sometimes, and they take into account other incomes that don't live in the area. So you might have a billionaire from Westchester making the right downtown Brooklyn 5K, but you know, the live there historically 36K for the year. So it baffles the mind, but working with tenant organizers, lawyers when they're available, et cetera, really important. Just fighting for like transparency.
Thank you for everything that you all shared. So, continuing with question 2, how do the barriers that you all mentioned impact the effectiveness of the housing services that you all provide? And are there any particular policies that just make it even more difficult?
I can think of right now, like Brooklyn Level Up, we're part of a coalition. It's called NYC, right? It's New York City Community Land Initiative. Basically, the cohort of all community land trusts in New York City. And one of the policies that we're pushing, so this isn't necessarily a policy that makes it harder, but a policy that would make it easier, is it's called the Community Land Act. And it's a set of legislation that one of the things it would do is require the city to have a preference for community land trusts when they're giving away land, right? So like when we see these sites that are city owned and they go for an RFP and developers apply for them, the idea is HPD, you should give preference to groups who are applying who are community land trusts or who are community, grassroots organizations, so that when that land is developed, it's going to be closer. The decision making is closer to the people who actually live in that community. Because I think a policy that makes it difficult with the city-owned land, our public land, is that HPD often gives the land away to large developers, right? They just want to make sure that they can get the housing built. And like 100%, the housing needs to be, properly funded and it needs to be properly operated. So you need a certain amount of money in the bank to make that happen. But it kind of then cancels out any involvement from super grassroots organizations. So the Community Land Act, part of it would incentivize the city to, award this public land to more grassroots organizations, or at least teams that are partnering with grassroots organizations.
As far as our response to some of the challenges, how it impacted how we in neighborhood housing services, deal with the community regarding this issue. We actually had to be more holistic in a lot of our services. What do I mean by that? For example, given like our foreclosure prevention service, where we help homeowners with basic foreclosure. And it's not just foreclosures, that foreclosure includes mortgage and also tax and water arrears. What we find in dealing with them is that a lot of estate planning issues also come up. Meaning that, like, let's say, for example, during COVID, you had instances where, let's say, a spouse who was on the mortgage passed away. However, the remaining, person who survived by them wasn't on the mortgage, but on the deed, and the person had an outstanding mortgage. Or you have situations where someone would pass away, in foreclosure, and let's say they didn't have a will. Or let's say, for example, someone did pass away, they did have a will, and then let's say they had like 3 children, who jointly owned the property. However, one of the persons, one of the siblings living on the property, 2 of them didn't, and another 2 didn't, wants the other one to sell so they can get their money out of it. When the person who's there doesn't have any other way to go. So what that did was we actually had to work with other organizations on estate planning, doing first time home buying, and also when we're doing foreclosure services. So it wasn't just a one service type of thing. We actually had to blend it all, because what we found out, it just wasn't enough. Let's say, for example, to get somebody a modification, or to send in a modification when they had all this other stuff unresolved, like family issues, God owns the estate and so forth going on as well. So it made things much more complex,
Hi, everyone. Thank you again for coming today. I have a two-part question as well, so I'm going to ask the first part. And then, what advice or strategies will you recommend for residents who are seeking assistance given the challenges in the housing landscape? What?
Organize
Organize.
tenant associations, block associations, etc., so that everyone's kind of kept up to date on any changes going on, the turnover. Things get systemic really quick, so it could be one day you see like a neighbor's complaining about turnover, but you might not know like an LLC is buying the block, things like that. Say tenant organizing or organizing in general in the community, and staying up to date on the rights of renters primarily, and any changes in housing code for sure. It's usually, ultimately, I don't think we mentioned it up here, but like only a housing code judge can evict you. And usually that like is the best like peace of mind you give most people, because usually they might see a letter, might get a notice, might get a text from a landlord that says, I need you out.
Right.
You're not thinking about, next thing you're thinking like, my kids have school tomorrow or something like that. And you might leave out of fear. That's self-eviction. You don't want to do that. You don't want to give it keys ever if a housing code judge hasn't heard your case yet. But organizing.
Okay. Well, I think that also answer part of the second part question. Are there specific resources or programs that residents may not be aware of to address their housing concern? I think organization could be a good resource, but are there any other resources?
Housing organizations, like a lot of people aren't aware that
Yeah.
that they have that actually in any. Like if you live in Coney Island, you have an impact. If you live in Queens, there's an impact Brooklyn that you can go to right probably in your area. You just stand up to date on that. Just keep it where your neighborhood resources. Attend community board meetings. Those where a lot of resources are shared. A lot of people don't feel like going and staying, but you go get a resource table, pick up a couple papers. You're set on 10 topics for 10 weeks and you can study all day.
Yeah.
I
And to add to what Waleed was saying, at least now, post-COVID with community board meetings, then, if you can't attend physically, they have it on Zoom, via live, or you can go see the playback. So, to get some of that. So
This question is from me. How is your organization ensuring that residents such as elderlies are aware of those resources? Because I would think that younger generation like mine are curious, like to look into things, but more like even the immigrant residents, they not know about rules that they have here for housing. What are you guys doing to ensure that these residents are kind of knowledgeable or have some kind of
Sure. Yeah, one of the things when we come out to events like we partner, like let's say East Flash partnership, we have like a lot of partnerships with different organizations. So we're not standalone, we're not like an island in the sun. We partner with each other. We also partner with elected officials. We also partner with groups. Now we understand that we don't have a budget of, let's say, Coca-Cola or Google, to put a Super Bowl ad out. We understand that. But we do partner, with different organizations. We are also part of First Coalition, NHS and Impact, a part of ANHD, Central Association Neighborhood, and I'm bad with acronyms, and Associated Neighborhood Housing Development, right? We're part of that. We're also part of other coalitions as well. So that's how we also get the word out, working with elected officials. We also send out information out as well,
Yeah, and I think that is one of the things at Brooklyn Level Up we focus on, when we're putting something out there digitally, we want to make sure that we're also putting it out there like in physical flyers to make sure people, maybe seniors who are not on the internet all the time, can know things are happening. And also, like partnerships, like you're saying, specifically through churches, we try to connect with seniors through the church community and make sure that if a senior might need to apply for a resource, and the easiest way to do that is online, we can like sit with them and connect them and try to bridge that digital divide when we can for seniors.
Yeah, our organizing team, we offer free one-on-ones, and we also do strategized outreach to follow up with seniors. So if we have somebody coming to us and they say, I have issues in my building, we'll follow up by going out to that building and might see something in the lobby, post on your doors, like a housing help guide like this. That'll kind of give a breakdown about if you have an issue with not knowing the type of apartment you live in, to check if you're being overcharged or if you're being forced out of your apartment. And another big thing, I know NHS deals with as well with leadership development. So if we have an individual walk in and it seems that they already have a civil centered mindset where they're, hey, I'm community driven, and they're telling us like, hey, I'm doing this because I want to help the seniors in my community. Then we help develop them into a leader in their own community so that they kind of do our job, because we can't work everywhere at all times. So we have to pass on that knowledge. So same thing that we know, like to pass it on to potential leaders, then they can pass it on to their neighbors so that if they see a senior in their building being harassed, forced out, etc., they can jump on it and be able further to come to us, something like that.
Thank you.
Well, I also have one question. How do residents actively contribute to addressing housing issues there?
Yeah, I would say to expand what we said about organized. Many people here, if you're not part of like an official political organization, you're part of a church. You may be part of a union under 1199 or TC 37 people in the house. You may be part of other unions. You may be part of a social club. You and your friends probably knit together. I mean, you may not consider that political, but the fact is, you have got together under some part. You should use whatever resource you have. All right, a group of people. It doesn't have to be a huge amount of people. All right, to discuss issues. All right, relate to what impacts housing is a big issue. Lack of programs for youth is another big issue. Get together and talk about that. Don't just use like some of the time we spend, together just to deal with some of the social stuff, which is great. But we also have like a lot of other serious stuff, which is actually, diminishing our quality of life, which is adding a lot of stress on life. We also discuss too, And the thing is that community board meetings were mentioned. All right, it is a good thing to go to. Also, I think a lot of people here, just intuitive, probably everyone knows who the president is. Everyone here probably knows who the mayor is. But how many people show up and know who your city council person is? Sure, okay, it's a good crowd. You stay a simple person. Stay simple. Now those, all right, I got. Now those people actually have the biggest impact when it comes to housing. All right, city deals with zoning. The state actually deals with like a lot of laws related to housing. As far as they passed the deed theft law, the LLC law was passed. The ADU was actually the accessible dwelling unit was the program which is a pilot program, which would allow, like, let's say homeowners to build like a separate rental unit, or you use your basement. All that came from the state, right? So also, those same social groups you have, whether it's your pool club or knitting club or your church group, press upon some of your local elected officials, on, these are these concerns, have it get in writing, send letters to them, make yourself known physically. They just had the Black and Puerto Rican caucus. You don't have to spend the whole weekend because I know it could be expensive. Just, take a bus there for like one day, confront, XYZ, person, but this is a big issue, what is some bills to use to address this? Those are some of the things, you could do, to have an impact on housing. Also, there's also some good resources. That's it, ANHD, you can Google them, Association of Neighborhood Housing Development. They have great information for homeowners, for tenants, regarding being rent burdened, regarding foreclosures. They have some good information regarding how much people are spending on housing overall. It's broken up to zip codes. They have some good information on that. Losses of let's say rent stabilized housing, what home ownership is actually is increasing. Yeah, some good information. Also, the community services community services society. They deal with like just general service information, gives housing, other issues, employment. They're also a good resource to tap into. All right. Another good resource to tap into that I look at it, and if you don't want to subscribe to it, go to the libraries, look at is Cranes New York, the business magazine. That sees some good information related to housing. But once you find out, where the money's being spent, you have an idea what type of policy that they and how it's going to impact. So Cranes business magazine. Go to the library if you can't afford the subscription for it. So those are some good resources. Also, the Real Deal, which is actually a journal for just real estate. That's also I read that try to read that regularly. You get to know what's coming up in your neighborhood before it even reaches the community board a lot of times. What apply, so forth. That's also a good resource. Everyone to the Real Deal. The Real Deal. Real Deal, yeah, Real Deal. Yeah, REL, yeah, Real Deal. And it's just kind of like an industry for real people. But it's also very good because it lets you know what's going on, as far as money and real estate.
Yeah, great. I feel like your suggestion of, informal groups who might be like your knitting club or whatever, yeah, you can use that as organizing. It's as simple as creating a WhatsApp group and using that WhatsApp group to, if you're experiencing something on your block or in your building, then everyone knows, oh, we're experiencing the same thing. And I think one thing a piece of advice is like, don't stop when the bureaucracy drains you because, right, it's going to, like, there's going to be, the bureaucracy causes roadblocks. But if you can be organized within your own little micro unit and then find a local organization, like one of ours or whatever organization you want to speak with, then give the letter, that your block signed onto of some issue to that organization. Say, can you help us get the attention of the local electeds on this specific issue? Like, when we're working with tenants and they're organizing on their micro level, we like bring it up to like the higher level. So it can be a kind of chain of command that helps get through the exhaustion of the bureaucracy. Everyone can kind of have their.
Yeah, it was, dealing, helping residents actively, contribute to addressing housing issues.
I would say following up, like holding elected officials accountable, following up with their own complaints. A lot of people call HP, they call 311. A lot of people feel like that's the whole process, but it's really just the first step. Truthfully, in terms of like securing repairs, especially from a negligent or unresponsive landlord. So if you're asking for repairs or you have a leak and they're not fixing it, I call 311 and they come out and say, yeah, that is a leak, and they leave. Usually nothing happens. You want to take that verified violation, go down to housing court and start a repair case against your landlord to get the repairs done. So keep it paper trails. That's important. A lot of times people come to us and when they tell me that stuff hasn't been fixed in months, so I ask them how did they ask. I talked to the super when I saw them. I mentioned it verbally. Not a good idea to keep a paper trail for everybody.
Well, there's a second part also to, are there opportunities for community involvement or advocacy that individuals and local groups can engage in to make a meaningful impact? And kind of touched on it, social groups.
Yeah, definitely with the community boards. Even though the community boards, their recommendation advisory though, it's still good. I think you can bring some people to that community board because community boards, people vote on whether or not to issue X, Y, Z business liquor license. housing which is not as of right, the city want to convert it to housing for people with developments, all different type of things come across it. It's recommended. It's not necessarily law, but it is strongly taken into consideration. Those are good opportunities to find out. All right. And you can go on the website and you can actually or call them to find out what's the agenda for that evening. So you can actually bring some of your cohorts there. That's one way.
Okay, in what ways can residents become more informed about the complex dynamics of housing crisis in New York? Part two is, are there educational initiatives, workshops, or resources available that can help raise awareness and empower individuals to advocate?
So yeah, in terms of workshops, organizations like Impact NHS are always putting on monthly Know Your Rights workshops, organizing workshops, and just a quick cheap plug, Impact is going to be hosting a 4-part workshop series coming up in March, a leadership development series that we host yearly to cover everything from tenant organizing to individual issues to campaign work that we do with local elected officials and with our various coalitions. And those that complete it get an incentive prize and certificate of completion, just throwing it out there. And if you want to be signed up for that, speak with me afterwards. But yeah, taking advantage of the free workshop that your local housing nonprofits put on. And also taking advantage of one-on-one sessions too. So you can, if you yourself have a personal issue or you have pressing questions, go sit down with the housing organizer. It'll probably be free, take all 30 minutes and you find out what's going on in the community, pressing issues, how to combat the issue that you're facing, and then you can also take resources back and share with me.
I think I had mentioned it before nicely, the New York City Community Land Initiative. They're a good cohort to reach out to if you want to be on like newsletter or something like that. They cover a lot of the citywide, the advocacy that people can get involved with different legislation that's being proposed. I think they're a good one. Yeah, just generally subscribing to the newsletters of your local housing organizations, because whenever an issue or legislation is being proposed, typically we're going to represent, for the community and that.
Yeah, what I would recommend, if anyone here is a tenant, every year annually or when you have like different persons, the AG and also on the state level, but also the city has like the tenants know your rights guide. You can call in for a copy, or you can just Google tenant guide HPD, and you can actually download it. Go through that, and they have a different language. So that also, as far as that, if you're a homeowner, anybody a homeowner here, HPD also has like a homeowner's guide. It's pretty extensive, so it covers everything from repairs. It covers anything from repairs, what to do if you fall behind in your mortgage, weatherization, lead laws, soup to nuts. Call HPD and you can actually have one sent to your house. NHS, we do have, well, you can also stop our office to get that. I did mention some of the resources like ANHD, which is a coalition we're a part of. They also have workshops. Well, some workshops actually open up to members in the public, but workshops on organizing, workshops on various housing issues. They're good resources. Also, got CUNY. The CUNY has like a law center. CUNY Law Center. They also have training for various things, organizing, they don't just deal with housing issues, they just deal with labor, but still, labor is like encompass a lot of stuff. They have had workshops on real estate and the housing crisis, which to give you a better understanding. So, and most colleges as well. But CUNY labor, ANHD, I mentioned that. Yeah, as well as the tenant guide, just for a good, background. Also the homeowners manual of by nature. Those are some good sources.
It's free to ask question.
Hi, I just have a question for people that are undocumented. How would you be able to support with your program? That's part one. And the second part is how to help, adolescents and teens, or I should say 18 and plus, to obtain housing. Because a lot of times children leave foster care and they're looking for housing. So that's two separate, but very important.
Yeah, so for people undocumented, as far as our services, we don't ask, what's your documentation status, so it's open to everyone. The only thing where the challenge comes in is, let's say, for example, there's resources. So let's say, for example, somebody's behind in their rent. We have to actually struggle hard because they won't be able for a one-shot deal. Is let's say a citizen, let's say someone who's like have a green card would be. So we have to fish for other resources, whether it's, let's say, council charities, or some other nonprofit. But as far as our workshops and everything else, as far as our one-on-one counseling with someone like being evicted and they're undocumented, because we get clients like that all the time. They're more than welcome to give impact to any just all, and we just work with them to sort out that situation. But we may have to rely on some other institutions. We have to also rely on the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, for guidance on that, as far as resources to help. What was your second question?
Well, more so for young adults that are leaving foster care. Just wondering what type of programs you have that could possibly be home for them. For children that are looking for housing. A lot of times they go to supportive housing and those applications could take a very long time, or even, night shift. It could take a very, very long time. It could be in a system for 3, 4, 5 more years because they're waiting for housing.
Right. Yeah, I would rep the same stumped on that, because most of our demographic we deal with are people either post. Most people come to us a post. Something to think about. A post. College grads who actually come to us, who have issues with people with middle age, who have housing issues. We haven't thought about so much people like pre-18. So
like 18 and
the 18
above,
and up?
just that window.
Okay, window.
They stay in care until they're 24, 25 sometimes because of lack of housing. So
Right.
just wondering.
Right. Yeah. They're still free to call our office, because we try to place them as best as possible. We can't make any guarantees because given the market the way it is. But we work with real estate agents, and we do have connections to different management companies and stuff comes available. So you can always give us a call, and we'll work with them to try to sort out a plan as far as the applying for different apartments. So they can work on.
Yeah, I think it's really hard because just the rate of being able to produce housing, for people aging out of foster care, like we can't keep up, and we need to be creating more opportunities for that. But one thing I thought of is I saw recently an HPD RFP. It's actually in the Bronx, but HPD is giving away a piece of land and developers are applying, and before they put the RFP out, HPD did a community plan with the local community, and that community voted to focus on housing for young adults actually in that property. So it's like little by little, and it's still not going to be enough, but there is maybe a possibility of doing some advocacy work around specifically like getting HPD then to incentivize developers for doing more young adult housing, so we can try to close this gap with just the availability of it. Yeah.
I would say, in terms of like the renters market in New York City, there's no, it's the same hurdles that everyone else would have to jump over. There's no resources that I know of that would have a young person jump the line or anything like that. And that's unfortunately why we do see a lot of like big situations, stuff like that. It's an affordability issue. I would say if you're a young person, 18, not again, that would be the demographic that I had no problem pitching the lottery to, because time is kind of on their side in terms of waitlist times. And yeah, it's tough out there. Making sure that they apply when they qualify would be nice. Because a lot of times people they get into their lottery or they on their own house connected to their computer, they see the high rise number across the street. They don't look at the ads. They see they'll never qualify. They'll just click apply, then they'll wait 10 years and then say, I've been waitlisted for 10 years. But in reality, they were never in the running. So making sure that you work with an ambassador to make sure, like, hey, if you have a verifiable income, let's use it to our advantage as best we can.
Flip side of the question, what protections are in place for our seniors as far as housing goes?
And so for there's different subsidy programs in place that's subsidized, it's like that stabilized seniors can apply for like SCREE, it's a rent increase exemption program. They have to counterpart for people with documented disabilities for degree. So if you're stabilized, you know that each year rent from not to get too much into it, but those little percentages that your rent goes up for your lease. It's voted on each year by a guidelines board, and that subsidy in existence if you're making under 50K and you're considered rent burden, which pay more than 1/3 of your income towards rent, you apply for this subsidy, and what it will do is essentially freeze your rent. So each time you renew forward, the subsidy will pay that difference. So if I'm paying $500 in rent and I'm a senior and I apply for the program, every time, even though my rent will be going up in principal, I'll still be paying that $500 and that increase will be paid by the subsidy. And if we have, I don't have the program, but you can reach out to Impact or NHS. It's free application or re-application.
And also with FEPS, FEPS, Family for Homeless, the elimination program, FEPS, yeah. Well, it is a voucher program. It is city voucher program. It's like the city version of Section 8. The only thing with FEPS, normally it's limited to 4 years, right? However, if you're a senior and you get FEPS, you can actually get it on an ongoing basis. The only thing is that you probably have to like, every year either reapply or recertify every year. Yeah, certified. So that's also like a resource. However, to add to your point, as far as like housing related to seniors, that is it's criminal as far as the city, because that's also another population which is actually being grossed because it's not enough.
There's technically the senior housing as well, but it's a wait list that's literally based on like available. So that's right as half the way and it's available.
The income,
It won't flow. Oh yeah, that's been based on the income.
yeah, because I'll tell you, use an example of 50,000. Sometimes you have qualified nurses, stuff like that. Get a trust and work with their property. 5 years, 7 years after they're looking for housing. But with your pension and stuff, you're making 80 or 90,000. When you apply for senior housing, you're paying in a regular appointment, which is ridiculous. Nobody, looking at that, it's a big issue. Because if I want to apply for senior housing, my pension is 80,000. After I retire, I'm paying almost $3,000 a month. And it happens.
Yeah.
It's also the number of summons I applied for housing connect because I'm one person, they refuse to give me a bedroom. I want schedule, they want me to studio.
Yeah, a lot of the senior housing is studios, and I think this is an advocacy thing too, because I've been on the developer side of it too, where HPD just wants you to build as many units as possible, right? Like, so that's why if a developer proposes all 1-bedroom senior housing, HPD asks the question, why aren't you doing studios? And then you can get more units, right? So this is not only from like the developers wanting to make money. There are mission-based developers that can be convinced, right, to do 1-bedroom, but then it's the city saying, we have these mayors, the mayor wants to build, whatever, X number of 1,000 units this year. So it has to be studios or else we're not going to meet that goal. But I've seen is the effective ways of like countering that is the council members. So you need to go to your, this is an organizing advocacy thing. I know no one has time to add it to their list, but this is what I've seen been successful. Is going to your council members and saying, we heard there's a new senior development going up, around us. We need you to demand and advocate for one bedrooms. We need you to advocate with HPD specifically for one bedrooms. And that I've seen that work. Most of the time it works when the developer is asking for a rezoning and there's an actual formal like community input process and the council member has veto power over it. There you can get larger units. When it's like as of right, like when they don't need to go to the city to get higher building permitted, it's harder, but it's still possible to get your council member to advocate for that. And then something else that ties into that is somewhat recent. So the HPD housing, the senior housing had for a while, all HPD housing, like the community preference, right? So it's like up to 30% or 20%, 15% of the units would go to people who have addresses in the community. But that was challenged with a lawsuit many years ago. It's been in the courts for a long time. And it was just like a ruling was found where it's deemed as like against fair housing to offer this community preference because there was precedent where it was preventing people from being able to access wealthier neighborhoods, right? So the community preference in a wealthier neighborhood was just allowing wealthier people to move in. But then if you put that in another neighborhood, of course, if we have seniors who need housing in this neighborhood, we would want the senior housing to benefit the seniors in this neighborhood. But this ruling is going to make it so that HPD is now going to like sunset that policy. So instead of being able to set aside 15% of the units for community members, like in 2 years, I didn't forget what the actual numbers are, but over X amount of years, that community preference is going to go down to 0% now. And I don't know, maybe that's something that can be reversed, but it's something that I wanted everyone to make sure you were aware of.
Do you all know of any programs or initiatives out there that are helping residents become developers or residents become lenders? And I'm asking specifically because I'm invested in Michigan, or can't do it here, right? And so I'm pretty sure that other developers would love to invest. Maybe we can come together to invest in New York. But yeah, just curious. Are there any programs to help people developers and landlords in New York?
Developers, I'm not certain developers. Now with landlords, there are programs as far as because if the landlord as far as plans to live in the property or not. You told me that's yeah, go on.
No, where it's investment property. Not sure it's an primary.
No, I'm not aware of anything. Not to say it doesn't exist, but I'm not aware.
I'm just curious. The reason
We're
why-
trying though. Brooklyn Hub is trying with the community land trust work
Yeah.
to try to build like a community investment trust, something where people can come together. The act of pooling money with your community already happens, especially here. So can we build on that to invest in real estate? So yeah, TBD, but would love to work on it.
Yeah, the only reason why I brought it up is because a lot of the issue we're having is talking about affordability, right? So if affordability wasn't the issue and people had the funding to live wherever they wanted to, most of that happens when you're a developer and when you're a landlord, because the tax law is designed to benefit those people. So my whole thing is let's do that. Let's do that.
So I think why we talk about like organizing so much too,
Yeah.
because even if the program is not in existence, if you have an active tenant association and hear about some potential turnover or they to sell your building, not impact, but you have a strategy. There's this organization that can assist with kind of like a co-op conversion where it's a there's a pilot program. I don't think I ever got about
It's
the
happening.
first option.
Sorry. That's part of
First.
proposed legislation.
So
Yeah,
it's proposed.
that's also the community land act.
So in the future, land groups of tenants might be get the right to have first chance to buy their
Yeah.
so that's not it.
You guys touched on a lot of available resources and ways to be informed, and I have a question. Like, I was in a meeting, a few weeks ago with the Flatbush Tenant Coalition, and during the meeting, they had, the group, I think the Urban Justice, and they had a presenter that talked about, the minor crisis, but she shared a screen, that showed that there's nearly 500,000 available vacant apartments in New York City. And all of that's like confirmed by HPD, like it's their listing. And then she even showed that there's nearly 300,000 apartments that's not even on market, included in outside of that 500,000 apartments. So looking at that, it looks like, and Tyrone mentioned earlier, that it's not a lack of housing, really. Is there other resources that we don't know of that are underused? Because 500,000 apartments vacant is underused.
Warehousing and units have been going on way. It's like, it's not a historical thing, but it was a tactic by landlords. So when Tyrone was talking about them taking away different bonuses that they were legally able to get, at some point it was pretty attractive to keep an apartment vacant for a while and try and bring somebody in because the bonuses you were legally entitled to. But in June of 2019, when those got taken away, a lot of apartments just got left in limbo, and I don't have an answer for how to try and like poke and prod and get them unwarehoused, but there's stuff in the making that they should be forcing those landlords to put them on market. But nothing like
But I'll tell you, Niger took one vacant apartment. Niger has a lot of vacant apartments.
Yeah.
All right. Well done, everything's there, but they're not giving it out. And to me, that's bias and preferential treatment because we have so much of people with vouchers. And they themselves don't even want to take the voucher. You have sections where you're sure you're going to get your rent. So in fact, get yourself your act together and you will move on. But these are partners, I will tell you. One was offered to me. I didn't even apply because I knew somebody in Niger. And under circumstances, oh, we'll give you one if you want it. Why? There's so much people because I work with in the shelter system who are looking for housing. Yes, families, and something. You have almost 100 units empty right now. And what's going on? It's a system. It's a system.
so, and about what Cindy said about what can we do about the warehouse units or stuff like that. I would say utilizing resources like the Commission of Human Rights is really important. I've had tenants have vouchers get turned away, but when you let them know you don't know your rights, know that this is income discrimination, so it's income discrimination. Things change a little bit. They're not.
Don't work with you when you mention your rights and stuff like that. They're going to get a lawyer. You will never say, I want to work with you. Shut you down. So they call you go into the office, you can get an appointment. So it's a block.
Does human rights help with that block?
So that's a great question. Usually our advice, and I love that you brought it up, is don't, especially if you have a voucher, when you're looking for the apartment, don't say I have a voucher. So a lot of people, the first thing they do, they check the phone and say I have a voucher, find me an apartment. Don't do that. You go look for the apartment first. You express your interest, and then on the follow-up meeting, when we're talking about how you pay for the apartment, you say I have a voucher. And then, like my colleague said, when they ghost you, when they say, oh, whatever, that's when you call us and we will immediately follow up with them. And if we see the apartment is available, we're going to sue them and get you the money as well as a redress because you wasted your time, right?
Good job.
You have to because you wasted your time, you packed your bags, that's time is money. Right? You packed your bags, you did this, you did that. So our goal is to spend, because the thing is that they have to learn, right? If you can't, especially for not to be, we're talking about warehouse units, you have to be able to take pulse, and yeah. So when it comes to vouchers, especially, I do have that advice though, is if you don't put in say a voucher, don't put in say receiving such assistance for payment, always start out, I'm interested in this. What is it like? And then on follow-up, if they immediately start to say, oh, I don't want to deal with you for money, that's fine.
And what is going on too with Niger? They're selling some of their buildings,
Yes.
all right? And they're paying people to move out and placing them other places and increasing the rent.
Yeah.
All right? There was a fire over on Pennsylvania, was yes, all right? And they want to buy these people out, giving them Section 8 vouchers, so they wouldn't have any problem with finding a apartment. That's not right. And it's going on.
Yeah, to answer Cindy's question, which is an important question, the only way to address that, in my humble opinion, policy, that has to be addressed on the mayoral level. It's coming. Maybe people think of proposing some type of a law because, as you know, in New York City, the vacancy rate is like the number of apartments available. And quickly, if anything drops below, let's say 5% vacancy, then you consider it to be in a housing crisis, right? New York, and this is this week or recently, we have vacancies like this overall. The city is 1.45%. It's horrible, and we dropped from we were like 4.25, which is not, so we went from worse to worse, right? As far as the vacancy rate. So maybe we could propose some type of legislation, some type of policy if the vacancy rate overall in the city drops, you have X amount of warehouse apartments, then some type of incentive. This is an emergency situation where the city have to commandeer some apartments. That may be something to think about, when you're dealing with some type of housing crisis. It may I know it's going to get challenged in court, because the landlords have the money to do that. But if you're dealing with a crisis, we have people, sleeping on the street and on subway trains. The urgency, we need some serious solutions. But it has to be answered on a policy level.
There is I'm looking in my email because there is a, specifically warehousing advocacy, anti-warehousing advocacy. And I'm trying to find one group in the meeting. Yes, Stabilizing New York. I'm going to find it. Share it with it.
Or if your landlord, if you think you're in your building, you see, your landlord's warehouse. Or now what happens with back in the night? I'm like,
Yeah, right. So it's like about getting behind that and then like following up. Yeah. Doing that.
Is there a way to tackle how the funding is used? So we talked about the fight for housing and a lot of really the search for housing. But you have tenants struggling with the very housing they have right now, right? Where landlords are not making repairs, and you have developers in this community, like that meeting I mentioned. In that meeting, they mentioned a developer in this community that received over $100 million to do repairs, and the repairs haven't been done. But then you hear about budget cuts, which we're the ones feeling it, service providers feeling more, and you have somebody receive that money and not do what they were supposed to do. How do you address that?
that's I think if the funding is coming from Duke, because you want to let whoever's providing that funding know that the funds are provided for this purpose, then it goes to what it's supposed to. But if it's something a little simpler where you sort of repairs to be done, and you got to the point of trying to sue the landlord, judge wanted the repairs to be done, and they still have been neglectful. So our next step, you got to hold contempt in housing court. And sometimes when the city sees that, oh, this landlord really has no interest in fixing that pitch, he can step in and do repairs to some time.
I'll be a devil's advocate. About a month ago, a number of top officials under Niger was because the repairs had to be done. Contractors being paid and being halfway done. They get the money and work orders are closed. All right, you hear about it, and then there's nothing. You have to look online and see what was the follow-up on it. You can't find it. Because 80 Nigerian employee was taken in police custody.
So it was a federal, actually, the Fed did the city. Yeah.
So it's ongoing.
And I feel like it goes back to what Jerome said in the beginning about privatization. The city has now been selling off nicer properties. That's a city policy decision. And they're thinking that, well, NYCHA's failing, we can't fix it, let's sell it to private developers who, yes, there are going to be long-term affordability restrictions on the buildings that the developer develop, like they're going to be affordable. Although, right, there's like all this. But one thing I also wanted to point out is that there's like legislation being proposed to form a social housing agency. So this would be sort of, I think the legislation is being proposed to like replace NYCHA in a way so that there's still this public housing entity. I'm not too educated on it, so I have no opinion, but I wanted to share that.
I'm aware of that, something that is in the
Yeah.
UK, because it's in the Bronx, with Rochester housing. That is a housing that's been functioning privately for years. People think it's government. This is Flatbush Gardens. It's private. It's not under NYCHA. All right. And people think it's, so if you're not aware, you never know. It's affordable, right? Well, the change management, and it's affordable as long as you're working and making some money. Yeah, it's always the case. Yeah.
Kind of hitting time, but yeah.
Yeah, just one. Just, is there something on how to policy that? I think you mentioned these things, just, is there something this year that you have here? This year?
The Community Land Act is, I think, on all of our minds. The Community Land Act includes everything from this right of first refusal if you're a tenant in your building that wants to buy the building to convert it to a co-op. The Community Land Act also includes the thing I talked about before, where public land should be used for public good, meaning when the city gives away land, it should go to groups with the mission to keep the mission of that land for the public good. And then it also COPA, what else is part of the Community Land Act? Those are the major ones. Something else is part of it. Anyway, that's something, thank you for asking that question, because the Community Land Act is supported by enough council members to be signed into law, but even that is not enough to get it signed. So if, you come across any, there are opportunities where there are hearings where you can testify in support of the Community Land Act, and that goes a long way for so the electeds, are pushed to try to sign into law to be our.
I know we spoke a lot about today advocacy. What I think we should look on the horizon for this year and also in the ongoing years have to do with like have to do a lot with climate change and housing in the event that, what I mean by that. In a lot of areas, as far as the massive rainfall that we're experiencing, flooding, not just coastal areas, but even areas like high above like the floodplain. Apartments, getting flooded, due to the runoff, due to the storm drains flowing. What's not being talked about is, you still have, and also the sea level rising, you still have like a lot of homeowners in, let's say, areas like Canarsie, areas like the Rockaways, who actually, in a couple of years, the question is going to have to remain, is it going to be viable, certain areas of New York? And that may lead to an increase in flood insurance, which is they're going to increase, like, as far as, the ability to stay in these communities. So in Canarsie, some of the coastal areas, that's something also to look at, because, water levels are rising, and we're seeing impact. I mean, I got a call recently in Canarsie regarding home sinking, and it's not the first time, So this is something we should definitely look at, when it comes to climate change and how it's going to impact housing.
I would say, to keep your eye on, say, the response from, when I see like every election period that is like depending on what goes on or any like dog campaigns. Housing court kind of responds as well. So looking forward to all the upcoming elections, et cetera. And I would say just keep looking at what's going on with the tenant in New York City. Because usually when there's some type of distress going on, it's a big response that comes out from the tenant and all the tenant organizers of the city. So,
We have one last burning question for overtime. No? Awesome. I think we have got a lot of information and a lot of questions answered today. I thank you for the information that you provided and just pouring out in this room, and I believe the room is appreciative. You know, but I just want to give you an applause.
there you go.
Just one second, we have another program represented here. I just wanted to share.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christine Welch, and I'm from JCCA, Jewish Child Care Association, and I am from Home Finding and Foster Care. If anyone is interested, I gave a few people in the room a challenge to find out if you happen to know anyone that is interested in fostering. That's a huge responsibility, but we need loving people that's like in this room. So if you are interested, please see me before you leave. Once again, my name is Christine Welsh, and thank you so much. I'm also a neighbor. I'm